In this video, we're going to go over what the best comps are for patch 10.25, and this is week 2 of that patch, just keep that in mind, and this is probably the last meta snapshot of the year, guys, because next week it's like holidays, and I also think that the meta's pretty settled because we're in our second week so far. However, with all this being said, there were a lot of changes since last week because metas develop throughout time, so let's just get into what those changes are. So first up, we already know legendary comps, that's going to be the best comp for everyone. Unfortunately, it's quite difficult to get there, so you need to use one of these comps that we're about to list out in order to get to the level 9 comp, which is pretty much as many legendaries as you can fit in your comp, plus whatever you had left over from before. But S tier, it's still going to be Dusk Divine, but we used to have Ahri and Ashe up here as well, but pretty much no one plays them now. Or sorry, I shouldn't say no one plays them. No one plays them that often anymore. It's kind of like if you get the Ahri game, go ahead do it. If you get the Ashe game, go ahead and do it. I will say that Ahri is a really good transition into Kayn later in the game, which can solo carry you if you have like a Nico on your bench. But essentially, these two comps dropped out of S tier. The only S tier comps, it's going to be Dusk and Divine Warwick, and they are way ahead of the A tiers, which is Adept and Moonlight Aphelios. Not that these comps are bad, but they're just not as good as the S tiers because you could pretty much play one of these two comps every single game. After that, Reroll Mages made a comeback. People are playing Veigar a lot. You could go Nami, you could go Annie, you could go Veigar, you could go all three. You just need to get something to get you to level 9 if you guys haven't noticed a pattern yet. After that, Vanguard Mystic, Ahri, and Ashe, as we talked about, Warlords, Duelists, Hunters, Cultists, Sharpshooters, all these comps, it's like if you get a good start for them, go for them. And then later in the game transition out of them because they're just not going to be that useful in the super late game, which a lot of people are reaching. Like, I see so many games, especially at high level, everyone's level 9, everyone rolled 50 gold at level 9, and the people getting first, second, third place, they're going to have a bunch of 2-star legendaries in their team. C tier, Moonlight, Diana, Zed, and Enlightened. Pretty much this is all the assassin comps. We have like Assassin Talon, Zed, I mean, he's pretty much an assassin, right? And then Diana, of course, she's an assassin. Assassins are either like the strongest in the game or the weakest in the game. Right now, they're not looking that strong, and that's why Aphelios is so good because we don't have that many assassins out there right now. But yeah, let's get into some of the team comp changes because there were a couple of them, starting with the Dusk comp. This was happening a little last week as well, but especially this week, a lot more people are playing Vayne. You go like 3-star Vayne with Rageblade and Runons, and that normally carries people throughout the whole game without needing any legendaries, because normally you sell whatever units you have items on and then put them on your legendaries. But when you have the Vayne, she could use Warwick items really well with the QSS and the Runons. So you just build that. If you get 3-star Vayne, go for Vayne. If not, go for Warwick and go into the Divine comp that we'll go into right after this. Of course, you have the Riven that's really good. Her items aren't these items. I thought I had updated this, but maybe it didn't save. You want Sunfire Cape and Bramble Vest. Ionic Spark, not that great anymore. It's still useful, but there are other items you could use. You could use like Blue Buff. You could put like Hand of Justices on her. You could use like Quicksilver Sash. Lots of different options here, but Vayne and Jhin are going to be your main damage carries, and they're just going to be making use of all sorts of items. Vayne takes the attack speed items, and then Jhin takes the sword items. By far the strongest comp. Again, you guys can check out my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta, to get more info on how to play all these comps, because I list out the difficulties, item dependencies, variants, and what chosens you want, some of the requirements, item holder, how to play it, pretty much everything you need to know. So go ahead, go to the website if you guys want more info after you watch this video, because a lot of people, they use my site when they're playing the game and they just use it as a reference as like the game goes on. You can use it however you want, but that's what I hear a lot of people doing. Divine Warwick, this is the comp we were just talking about before. Quicksilver Sash, Runons, Deathblade. Going to be a great Warwick build. Warwick's going to kill a lot of stuff. You just have to be careful. The positioning is very important. Against a lot of Jhins, you want to put your Jax on the edge, so you should actually put Jax like in the corner here, to the left of Aurelia or to the right of Shen, one of those places. Obviously, you need to move Yone accordingly if you put it on the top right corner. But the reason why you want to put your Jax there is because he eats all the Jhin force shots, and that just lowers a lot of the DPS of the enemy teams, like, pretty handedly. You still want Aurelia on the side because she disarms people. Same with Shen because he's going to taunt people, but Jack should be in like the corners if their Jhins are in the corners. Just something to keep in mind. But Warwick, he can be pretty much anywhere. I like putting him in the middle. I like lining up Lee Sin to kick their tanks into their backline, so his position is going to vary too. But yeah, 6 Divine, really good. Warwick's going to deal a ton of damage. Adepts are just good in general. And pretty much every unit you see here is just a good unit. This is why this comp is so strong. So you put all the items on Warwick and then you just run like all synergies plus just general good units on this. So let's go into the next comp. We have the A tiers Adept. This is just the Adept plus legendary comp. I think Adepts with legendaries are the best like complementary trait to the legendaries, just because Yone is one of the main carries of the legendary comp, and then Aurelia and Shen, like Adept's good against pretty much everything, and Aurelia has AoE disarm. Shen really tanky, and he's a mystic, so he works really well with Zillion. So there are just a ton of options that you could go with this Adept comp, and it's just really strong with the legendary build. That's why it's an A tier. After that, we have Moonlight Aphelios. People have been playing this a lot. I have indifferent feelings about this, but I have to put it up into the A tier just because it's being played so much. It's really hit or miss. Like, you hit everything, you're going to do well. You don't hit everything, and then you're going to do really, really badly. So it depends on your playstyle. Some people love that stuff. I personally try to avoid that when I can. But you get QSS, you get Rageblade on Aphelios. Third item doesn't matter too much, just make sure he has a third item. And then after that, you just kind of have to hope that you hit him, because he's going to be really strong if you do. Alright, let's go into the next comp though. It's the B tier. So B tier, you still play these just because none of the comps really matter, because you're just trying to get to Fast 9 as easily and quickly as possible. So B tier, much more playable than in other patches. But this is Reroll Mage. This is one of the comps you don't play the legendaries with. You kind of keep your whole team like this, just because Nami and Veigar, they make the best use of those items. And if you get 3-star Veigar, he's going to be popping people anyways. Annie's super good as a frontline tank just because she is super tanky, especially with 6 mage buff. She ends up getting like giant shields, and it's really funny to watch. Lilia, probably the best mage, and she does like a pseudo AoE stun too. It's like you just stun like 6 people or 4 people, I forget how many it is, and it's just broken. Like, you got to be playing Lilia when you're playing mages. I saw a couple builds and they were not playing Lilia in mage, and I was just so confused. They were playing Ahri instead, even though they didn't itemize Ahri. And just play Lilia, because yeah, she's just gonna enable your whole team and be like all the utility that you need. But this comp's pretty fun. Like, you get the Nami early game. It's gonna be chosen Nami, of course, and she's just gonna Ludens everyone to death. If you don't get the Nami early game, like the chosen Nami, you could go for Veigar instead if you have good items for him. And maybe you get an early Veigar, you get a couple stacks earlier. Sometimes it works out. I personally don't like going for 3-star Veigar because it gives up all chances of going for Fast 9. But like, hey, sometimes you get a ton of Veigars, you could go for it. It's really fun to watch too. So if you want to have fun, this comp's pretty cool to do that with. After that, we have Ahri Vanguard Mystic. Again, this is one of the builds that fell apart in the second week. And it's still good, but the reason why people don't play this that much is because you just don't end up playing Ahri in the late game. She's one of the best item holders, so you just kind of use her to do that and then throw her items onto Kayn. For example, if you have blue buff on her with Jeweled Gauntlet, like, Kayn makes super good use of those items. Pretty much like any of the damage legendaries uses ability power really well, and she's a great item holder for ability power, but you just don't want her in your super late game comp. Which is why I guess she's kind of lower on the tier list because of that reason. So next up we have the Ashe build. Ashe, again, she went down 2. I'm not really too sure why she's not as strong as the other teams right now. My guess is that she was just being overplayed last week because she kind of got a big buff, and her whole Elderwood synergy got a buff as well. But maybe it just ended up not being as strong as people initially thought it would be. But yeah, a lot of people are playing less Ashe, which is why we got to lower it down on the tier list. But this build's still great to get into the late game legendary builds, because Ashe can hold all your attack damage items, and then all your AP items you could just slowly sell off, drop down to 3 Elderwood, 2 Brawler, and then just play like a bunch of other legendaries such as Kayn, Azir, Yone. You could add a Dazzler for Ezreal, so you could play something like Lux. Lux is good with Lee Sin because they're both divine. Tons of different options there. You could also do like Aurelia with Lux and then add in Shen and Yone to get Adepts and Divines in. Bunch of different options there, but the Dusk version's just better. That's why Ashe isn't that played as much compared to the Dusk build, because like, you look at her items, and then you look at Vayne's items, and then you look at what Vayne does, and then what Ashe does, and then you quickly see the difference why people play more Dusk than Ashe. But who cares? It's still a good comp. Next up, we have Warlords. This is a classic Fast 9 comp. We've spoken a ton about this throughout the entirety of the set, in fact. Like, Katarina is a great item holder for any legendary, so you kind of just throw items on her, sell her at level 9, drop down to 3 Warlords, or don't even run Warlords in the late game. Put all these items like if you're thinking about like Kane or Yone items, like these are going to be pretty good, like maybe add a blue buff instead of the hat, and that's going to be even better. And Kat actually uses blue buff pretty decently because it gets her ult off really quickly. So even though she doesn't care about the effect of blue buff, just having 2 tiers on her is pretty good on its own. In this particular comp right now, we just run the 3 frontliners just because like you just need frontline in the early parts of the game. But after that, like all the damage items, they go into legendary units, drop all these warlords for like 5 or 6 legendaries, and then just have fun from there. Let's go on to the next comp, Duelists. Duelists is one of the few that actually play a bunch of Duelists in the late game. Lots of different carry options. Like, Yasuo is obviously going to be your early to mid game carry, but then after that, like, Lee Sin's going to be really good. Ezreal's going to be fine to buff up your team, and then, like, of course, Yone, you want to itemize him, like, but he just uses, like, every item that, like, you can't really choose his items, but he uses all of them really well, if that makes sense. So you could throw anything on him. Just if you ever get a 2-star Yone, every carousel should be devoted to getting him items, if you guys haven't been doing that already. Let's go into Hunters. Hunters, really fun build. I think this is like the more fun Ashe build just because you have different carry options. You could go carry Warwick, carry Kindred as like secondary carries to Ashe, and I just love seeing Hunter procs everywhere. I don't know about you guys, but like it just looks fun and it like kills everyone, especially at 500. They get it so often that it's just fun to watch. You play the Adept frontline because Adepts are broken this set, but you guys already knew that because you guys watch my videos all the time. You guys know how much I love Adepts, and they're just so good because they force the enemy to build Quicksilver Sash, so they have to get a whole item. If not, like their team's useless at the beginning of every game. After this, we have Cultists. Cultists, no one really plays 9 Cultists anymore, but like if you get it, you get it. It's definitely not as strong as it was before, but you might as well just go for Dusk builds whenever you get a Cultist start. But if you really want to try it, and say you get like a lot of 3-star units early game, you could try to go for the 9 Cultists. It's kind of fun to watch, like not that great in practice, so I would avoid this, play all the other comps that we listed out before. Sharpshooters, kind of the same thing as before. Sharpshooters, Teemo's actually like one of the most broken units right now in the early to mid game because, again, he's similar to Ahri and Katarina in the fact that he is one of the best item holders for the legendary units, because guess who makes really good use of blue buff? Who makes really good use of AP items? Teemo's going to be that guy, so you could just throw all your items on Teemo and then sell all your Sharpshooters late game. Maybe you keep Jhin and Jinx late game because they have utility and damage. But you just sell Teemo, throw the items onto legendary units, and go from there. Right now in this build, we have the Vanguard frontline. If you don't need Vanguards, don't play Vanguards. You only need Vanguards if people are playing Jhin and Ashe, but if people aren't doing that, like drop them for some other stuff. You could play like Keepers, Mystics, Adepts. It's like pretty much anything goes from there. Let's go into the next comps, which are the C tiers. Like, they're still playable. It's all the assassin comps. We talked about this before. They're just not that good. Like, assassins either kill everyone before they die, or they die before they kill everyone. I guess you could say that about every single composition, but it's like, that's what assassins do. They jump to the back line, and you better pray that you kill their carry before you get one shot. But right now, they're getting one shot, so they're just not that strong compared to everything else. But yeah, you guys can check out how to play this on the website again if you guys really are dying to know how to play the assassin comps. We have the Diana comp, the Zed comp, and then we have the Talon comp. I would just avoid all 3 of these, honestly. The most playable one is probably the Diana comp. I would avoid Talon at all costs. Zed, it's good if you get like so many Zeds early with an early RFC. Maybe you could still do it and be really effective with it, but I don't know, guys. If someone has very high success with this, let me know down in the comments, but I just haven't seen anyone do consistently well by playing these comps very often. Let's go into the items. Like, sword's still good, glove's still good, tier's still good. You really just want to avoid Negatron. Like, even belt's not so bad. You could build like Sunfire, Morello, Zeke's. Zeke's is one of the best items in the game, I think, right now, just because all these team-oriented items like Locket, Zeke's, and Chalice, they're great for getting your team through the mid-game. And when the name of the game is going fast 9, mid-game is super important right now. But apart from that, like, Sword's still by far the best item, I think, just because it builds a good item with almost every other item. After that, Glove is super flexible. Hand of Justice fits in pretty much every team. Rod's great for early game. Tier's good for early game too. Bow, it's kind of a weird item, but if you're going Vayne, you really need bows. Same with Warwick and Ashe. Chain Vest, good for Sunfire Cape, good for Locket. You could build GA as well, but apart from that, it doesn't really build too much. So I would try to avoid these bottom 3 items for now. Let's go into the item quadrant. I didn't really change anything from last week. I feel like it was pretty accurate in terms of items. Again, like Zeke's Quicksilver, super good. Hand of Justice fits in every team. And then apart from that, you just want to build the items that are good on your carries. So that's going to change for every team comp. We already looked through every team comp already, so just copy those, like get something similar to them. You don't have to have perfect items every game because again, we're going legendary builds, so don't stress too much about like getting perfect items in this patch. Like just slam playable items and go from there because 2-star legendaries, they can use any item combination and do well. You just need to get there. So if you build your items earlier, you're going to save more HP in the beginning of the game. So you're not going to have like lost value from having unused items on your bench. So super important to build items like as much as you can, as long as they're like still decent items. That's why I love the team oriented items right now, because they take you through the mid game really easily. So you could kind of like turn your brain off, just build items and then just roll at level 9. But again, just to sum up, guys, and this is the last tier list I'm going to do for 2020. Dusk Divine, the best by far. Try to play these two pretty much every game. You could probably just get away playing both of these comps for the rest of the year. After that, like Adept's the best pairing with the legendaries, then Moonlight, Aphelios. If you want to do some reroll, go ahead and do that. Same with the mages. Ahri, great item holder for legendaries such as Kayn and Yone. Ashe, kind of overrated last week, so don't play it as much as you did before, but it's still playable. Warlords Fast 9, Duelists, reroll Yasuo into Fast 9, Hunters, like you could play Hunters throughout the whole game, I think, and then swap it out at the very last few rounds. Cultists avoid, Sharpshooters also kind of avoid. Sharpshooters are great in like stage 3. If you have like 2-star Teemo in stage 3, you're gonna win every single match and like just do super win streak from there. But like after stage 4, and like when stage 5 starts, like Sharpshooters just fall off the face of the earth, so you don't even want to play them for that long. C tier, all the assassins, just avoid these guys. Like, unless you get like perfect starts, don't play them. I mean, it's your LP. It's up to you if you want to gain more or less, but yeah. That's it for me today. Again, we have the set 4.5. I did a little preview on that because there was a leak of everything in the set, so go ahead and check that out after this video if you haven't already. But yeah, this is the last meta snapshot that I'm doing for the year. The next one's going to be patch 11.1, so I'll see you guys there. I think that's on January 4th, so definitely look out for that there. But yeah, see you.